is our brand new 2022 Ford Bronco two-door. We just sold our $58,000 Land Rover Defender 90S for this $44,000 Ford Bronco. That's a huge price difference. However, two vehicles that are in quite a similar class. Why did we downgrade?
It's the Big Bend. Even a lower trim Bronco, right?
Yeah.
If you're just joining us for the first time, let us introduce ourselves. I am Todd, Austin's dad, and we are car enthusiasts. We love making videos about cars and sharing our experiences and our opinions with you guys. We might even throw in an interesting fact every now and then, or something that has some value to you, the viewer. Today is our first video on the Ford Bronco, and we'll go through a whole series of videos as we have done with some of our previous vehicles on this Bronco. The ownership experience, any aftermarket items that we do to it, any issues we come across, as well as maybe some fun along the way as well.
Let's get into the first video now.
To get things started off, we're going to talk about how we ended up with this Bronco, the two-door.
Yeah.
We're also going to talk about what spec we actually have, so you will know firsthand the experiences we will be sharing with you.
All right, so first of all, let's get into how you got this thing. So this was totally last minute, not the plan at all.
So I've literally owned 60 plus vehicles in my life. I don't even know, we might be 70 plus at this point, and I had no intentions of buying a Bronco. I take that back. So when the $100 came out back in like 2020, whenever it was, give us $100 to put in your order request for a Bronco.
How could you not after watching that release?
Right, the release video was amazing. I don't even know when this was. This might even have been 2019.
I think it was 20. Yeah, I don't know. It was 19 or 20. Yeah.
And then like the end of time came before someone actually saw a Bronco in person. COVID happened, all this stuff. It was like the most delayed vehicle release known to man. So at one point I really wanted a Bronco, but then like I waited so long that it's just like, yeah, I'm kind of over it.
And now we're at the point where Bronco, you can't get one. You cannot get a new Bronco. You can't walk into a Ford dealer and get a Bronco. Heck, you can't even go and order a Bronco. Order banks are closed. Yeah, they're sold out.
November 2022 is when this video is being made, and that is the status in the world right now. You still cannot get a Bronco. You cannot go into a Ford dealership and say, I want a Bronco. You can't even go in to order it. There's none on the lot.
However, most Ford dealerships do have Broncos. Granted, they're used and 10 grand above MSRP. Not exaggerating. That's how much these are going for right now, 10 grand plus above MSRP, because they're in such high demand. Right. And you can't get them. You just simply can't.
This is exactly why I ended up with this 2022 Cactus Gray two-door Bronco.
Yeah. So ultimately, I am an employee at a Ford dealership. All of a sudden, this was a special order over a year ago. Customer showed up, decided, hey, I actually kind of wanted the four-door, and texted him, and boom, they showed up about 20 minutes later, and it is theirs.
Bought it at MSRP, maybe a slight discount involved, but hey, it's mine. We're gonna check this Bronco out with you for the next 6 months, for the next year. We'll see how much we enjoy this vehicle, and we'll share that experience with you.
Before we get started and talking about the spec of this, I just wanted to say that we are not disregarding the Defender in any way. The Defender was an amazing vehicle, and this was not planned. We were going for a luxury SUV, and bam, ended up with a killer deal on a Bronco in this market.
We will actually have in one of our videos comparing and talking about the segment specifically. Right, so we have an off-road segment. We have the Wrangler, we have the newly released Bronco, we have the Defender, which you have to get into the high trims for a base Defender, but people still view that as a competitor.
And then the G-Wagon is just out of people's price ranges, pretty much.
So there's a very few vehicles that fall into this true off-road segment is the point. We have experience with almost all of them.
This one and the Wrangler are pretty much the straight direct competitors though, because you get the doors off, the top off, and it's the same basic body design. However, what makes this substantially better than the Wrangler, in my opinion, is the fact that you can get the Sasquatch package in no matter what trim you get. Sasquatch package includes unlocking and locking front and rear diffs, transfer case, sway bar link disconnect, 35-inch tires. It is straight off-road package. You can get a Sasquatch package with crank windows. And in the Wrangler, the only way to get something like that is is to step all the way up to the Rubicon, which is a huge price gap.
Yeah, so Ford's really known for making things per the customers, trying to like make the vehicle unique to the customer's desires, and I think it's awesome. I really do.
I do. I think it's super clever.
I also think that Bronco obviously did a lot of thinking and had years of...
Yeah, the Wrangler's been out for a while.
Yeah, they've had years of people's complaints from the Wrangler, and they've obviously come up with some pretty clever things to make things better with the Bronco here. Let's talk about the spec that we have.
Absolutely.
I know that when I had my $100 in, this is not what I would have bought. I would not have bought a Big Bend.
You were looking for the Outer Banks. The Wild Trek is just a little bit too over the top for city driving.
Right.
So you're looking at the Outer Banks, if I remember right. The most popular being the Black Diamond, which is just under the Outer Banks. Then we follow that with the Big Bend. Then we follow that by the base.
Yeah.
And then also, we also now have the Heritage Editions to throw in there.
Yes.
And we also have the Raptor
and the Everglades.
And the Everglades to throw in there.
2022, some new trims going on.
There is no ending of trims with the Bronco.
We have a pretty specced out Big Bend here. So let's talk about it.
Absolutely. So here is the sticker to the Big Bend, and we are at $44,310.
Yeah.
So that's approaching a starting price of like 2-3 trims above this.
Yeah, tell them about the $5,300 in accessories that this has.
So we have Equipment Group 222A on this one. We have the mid package, which includes dual zone electronic climate control, front row heated seats, power outlet, remote start, Ford Copilot, Sync 4.
Yeah.
Then we have the big motor in this guy as well, which is pretty impressive on its specs. That is a $1,900 option for the big motor. We got $800 for the tow package. $600 for the tow package, $800 for the LED lighting this guy has.
They're so cool looking.
They're super cool looking. We have the side steps, which are $400. In my opinion, I definitely wouldn't get them.
Right. It'd be nice for my mother-in-law though.
Yes, absolutely. And then we just have all-weather mats for $160.
Yeah. So, and we have access to that Ford Pass app, so we can remote start it not only with the key fob, but from anywhere with our phone, lock, unlock. Great app, works well.
Yeah, and the thing with that app is, so that is not a part of that equipment group. As long as you have an automatic Bronco, that app applies. Basically, that equipment group is going to be putting it on your key, is basically what that means.
For sure. We are going to share some of our opinions with you now on not only our first day of ownership, our first impressions, but also if you've been following us and you're coming off of the Land Rover ownership, the Land Rover 90, which was the two-door, and we have the two-door Bronco now, we want to share some opinions between the two. I do hear and I read that there are people cross-shopping because of the off-road prowlness or whatever.
Yeah.
But they're very different vehicles. We're talking about a $44,000 vehicle versus a $58,000 MSRP is where the comparison is.
That is what we are comparing them to. However, those that are cross-shopping, I'm sure, are looking at the higher trims of the Bronco. So we do have to keep that in mind as well.
Right.
However, the first thing you're going to notice if you are cross-shopping the two of these is size. It is tremendously different. The two-door Defender is very similar in size to the four-door Bronco, as in length and girthiness as in width. I mean, the thing's huge.
It is.
Tank.
It is. I know we used the description multiple times when we were driving the Defender that it felt like a full-size truck when you're in the cabin, right? This feels like a mid-sized truck, right?
Yeah.
It definitely feels like the next segment down.
Sort of like a Ranger versus an F-150.
Yeah, it feels like there is a segment difference. And we're only talking about a handful of inches, but there's something about it, whether it's the larger windshield or the larger head clearance that's in there. There's something that makes the Defender feel substantially different in the cabin, both in size.
Yes, and what they do in the cabin is bigger in the Defender, there's no doubt about it. And they use that space quite well when it comes to areas to put things.
Brilliant.
There is not much storage inside of the Bronco. However, I do really like sitting in the Bronco. I love the feel of it. Great visibility on the inside. The cup holders are great. The shifter's a little bit awkward. They probably should have done a column shifter, but ultimately they probably didn't because you can get this in a manual, a 7-speed manual.
Right, yeah, so that whole center console is like, give me some more room for storage, right?
Yep.
So, but anyways, I went into this, my first initial impressions. I get the phone call, hey, come check out this Bronco. I open the door and I'm just like, oh, Ford plastic party, right? So I had this sour taste in my mouth, but I had to get it out knowing that I'm comparing it to a vehicle that was $14,000 more.
Yep.
And like, quite honestly, I make the comment that that Defender was worth $14,000 more in the differences of the two, right? The build quality, the design elements, the tech. There was a $14,000 difference, and I think it was justifiable easily, right? So some of the things that I noticed, my initial response getting into the Big Ben trim here was, it was kind of like, nah, whatever, it's all right. But as I drove it today, I kept thinking, like, my care level was going down. I was comfortable in there. It had all the amenities that were making me happy. And I'm thinking to myself, you know, if I left the top off and it started raining, all these buttons are covered, all this plastic's here. If I'm going down a dirt road, like, there's not like weird fabric to get dust in. Like, so I'm thinking that I like the price point. I like the quality of the materials, or the materials they chose to put in here. Yeah. Because, like, your level of care needs to go down. We'll also talk about that in a future video where we take this whole thing apart, right? And that's part of the gig, that you can have a civilian Bronco, but you can also turn it into this amazing crawler. Here are two beefs that I have from day one, 150 miles of ownership. Both of these are around the same topic. I'm holding the top for the front panels of the hard top in the Bronco here. This is the nice carrying case. It's well thought out that you can only put them in one way because of the little curve on the side. I was all excited. It's got these big meaty hooks to hold it down in the back. It really takes up like the entire back in the two-door. Yeah. So that if you put that back there, you're pretty much out of luck for any sort of luggage. But anyways, I opened the zipper one time, literally one time, and I can't get the zipper closed now. Is this the type of quality that I have to look forward to with my Ford ownership? I'm gonna get it working, but obviously some frustration there. So we take the tops off, my wife and I. Took like less than a minute to take both tops off.
Way easier than the Wrangler.
Way easier than the old turn dial, the Wrangler that we had back in like 2013. So we get them off, they're light, they're easy to manage. I love the sound deadening on there. I know, again, in our Wrangler, it didn't have any of the insulation or sound deadening. No. You'd touch that in the middle of wintertime and it was like an ice cube.
You got frostbite.
Right? So we take the tops off today. It's beautiful out. Minnesota, November, it's like 70 degrees, out of this world. And the buffeting, the wind buffeting, the woo, 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 as we're driving down the road at 55, it was so horrible. We didn't last more than a minute or two that we had to pull over and put the tops back on. So I was a little disappointed in that. I'm assuming there's going to be some sort of aftermarket deflectors, or obviously if we're in summertime where we're talking doors off or all the tops off, I would imagine that's not going to be an issue. But for the functionality of just enjoying those two front covers off and maybe wanting your windows up either all the way or part of the way, I don't know that you can do it in the two-door. If you have a four-door, I'm curious if you have this issue as well with that buffeting, but I was quite honestly a little disappointed when that happened.
What a mess it is in here.
Yeah, it's not very enjoyable to look at, is it?
No, it doesn't look very enjoyable to work on either.
It looks like a high schooler's science project or something with the routing and the engineering, but obviously it all works and it all makes sense, right?
Oh, but does it work based on some 2021 engine failures that we heard about?
There's obviously some controversy with the 2.7 V6 early on, and it has to do primarily with they went with another supplier for the valves, right? Okay. Engines would heat up, the valves would fail. There's 32 or 35 as a few months ago documented engine failures with those valves failing, and it was for a certain time period in 2021. Figure that out for another video for that time frame. There's also some issue with the oil pans where they would allow air to get in, so you'd lose the cycle of oil going through, right?
Yeah.
So they think, Ford thinks there's around 25,000 2.7 V6s that could be affected. Obviously not the way you want to start off a new vehicle on your line, but here we're in 2022. We're thinking this thing's going to be bulletproof. That's what we're hoping for, right?
Yeah, but I mean, what a mess. This looks so bad to work on. I mean,
the turbo's really easy to get to, right?
The turbo is also tiny as can be.
But it's impressive numbers. 2.7 liter, 310 horsepower, over 400 pound-feet of torque. And today, with our 150 miles of ideal driving, I will add that, you know, 55, 65, 70 miles an hour with minimal stopping.
Yep.
We saw 22 miles per gallon, which that is better than the 4-cylinder, 300 horsepower, 300 pound-feet of torque Defender that we came off of. We averaged essentially 20 miles to the gallon with that Defender. I'm anticipating we're going to be very similar, but with more fun under the pedal. And
while we are under here, I do want to bring up my beef with the Bronco, and that's just that some areas of this thing look cheap. I mean, for example, check out some of these, like from a distance, you can see the pinch welds. As we open the hood here, I mean, look at the underside of this hood. Yeah. I mean, what in the world is this? And all this glue they have going on. Just some of the areas of welds in this thing. I mean, they could have polished it up a little bit better.
I really, really wish they would have done what they did with the F-150. The same with the Defender, right? All aluminum construction. Yeah. I wish they would have done that. Obviously, it would have saved some weight, and we won't have to worry about rusting. It will be interesting to see how this holds up, because the steel that is used, and I'm not remembering the actual word, but it's a new technology of steel. It's thinner, it's more moldable, it's stronger, of course. So it's a thinner steel that with the composites in it are claimed to be stronger than the steel they were using previously. So it'll be interesting to see how Minnesota winters treat that. But yeah, I wish it would be all aluminum construction, but maybe that would not make it so easy to pop fenders off and pop doors off. That could be the reason behind that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys so much for tuning into the video today here on Performance on Wheels. I'm really excited to introduce the Bronco to the channel. And we are thinking maybe we'll turn this thing into a heritage edition. What are your guys' thoughts on that in the comments below, as in making this thing look classy with the white accents? Either way, thank you guys so much, and I'll see you guys in the future. I'm really looking forward to seeing what this engine can do once we break it in. See you guys.